All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting of the Water Commission for Tuesday, May 16th to order at 6 p.m. And if everybody will please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are all here. Moves us to item 4, citizen comment period. I doubt there's anyone signed up to speak. No? I'm sorry. Okay, perfect. Moving on to item number 5 there, business items. The first item we have is the approval of 4A is approval of the minutes for April 18th Water Commission regular meeting that are in your packets. So first of all, on the left, any changes to the minutes? Any changes on the right? All right, no changes to the minutes. Can I have a motion to approve?
A motion to approve minutes.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. Moving on to item 4B, discussions, reports, and updates. Utility Department Monthly Activity Report. Stephen, please take it away.
Good evening. For April, we pumped 16.37 acre feet for the month. Year to date for the Edwards is 34.19. Available is 544 acre feet. Edwards is still in stage 3. At Trinity Aquifer, we pumped 48.41 acre feet. For the year, we've pumped 220.98 acre feet. All required state samples were taken and came back good. We did one special well sample for when we did maintenance on the municipal well that's required, and it came back good, and it's back in service. For water loss, we went down from 8.5 to 7.7, so it's showing some improvement. AMI notifications, stage 2 alerts, April alerts was 469, down 50 from March. No new meters installed, replaced 1. Total meters read 1,699. Work orders 239, locates 33. 1 new request for leak adjustment and 1 sent to the Water Commission. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Stephen. Could you just mention, I saw the notice that you sent to the mayor this week about what you're going to do, what your pumping plan is. Can you just mention that for the commission and what your plan is going forward, please?
Okay. Right now, Edwards is in stage 3. They've been jumping back and forth since we've had the rain, but they're not really staying on stage 2. So I'm assuming, just unless we have some significant rain all the way through July, I'm going to look at this year as we're going to stay in stage 3. And if we stay in stage 3 water restriction, or if Edwards stays in stage 3 and we stay in stage 2, then I am going to assume that that's how it's going to be. And that would leave us 424 acre feet for the entire year. If we have that for the entire year, then if we pump about 1.75 acre feet a day, that would leave us a reserve of 21 acre feet by December 31st. And with that, we can use a little more here, a little less there, and that reserve would take care of any type of emergencies in case we had one come up.
Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate that. All right, any questions for Utility Department, starting on our right this time?
I don't think I have any questions at this time. None at this time.
Thank you.
More out of curiosity, is there any strong trend in the increase in aquifer levels with the rain?
It looks like it's gone up some for the Edwards Aquifer. I believe it was the beginning of the month, last day of last month and the beginning of this month, it jumped into stage 2 for the Edwards, and then immediately popped right back into stage 3.
I see.
So it's teetering on that line as of now.
Okay, thank you.
On the left? Dr. Carmen?
On the meter replacement, was that under warranty or?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, there's no other questions there. I'm going to move on to item B2, items applicable to the Water Commission discussed at the May City Council regular meeting. First of all, if y'all remember from last month, we had a water loss adjustment recommendation for 9902 Michelle Hill. That was sent to the City Council, and they approved our recommendation. And let's see here, what else happened? Public announcement, on the 24th of June, the police and fire department are going to have their yearly pancake breakfast for the Children Advocacy Center. I think we mentioned that the pump was replaced. Stephen replaced the pump, the main pump, right, Stephen? The one near here, I should say.
Yes, up at Municipal
Yeah.
Water Plant.
So that pump was replaced. That was 12 years old, and I know Councilmember Valdez asked some question about that, and we are updating the frequency of the change our pumps, changing around every 6 years there for better life cycle management, so we don't have to worry about failures. It was kind of a great catch that we caught that one and got it replaced. And I think we've talked about stage 2 and stage 3 and what's been going on a good bit already. Sam, our engineer, talked about the 2252 water line relocation. They've submitted the requirement letter. They think that's going to start in late May or mid-June. There's a discussion about the bids and the recommendation that were out there. It ended up being approved after some discussion on the money available and some other things and the nature of the contract. Bottom line on that is all the money is available, a combination of loan funds and federal funds, and that the contract that is out there, it's a set cost contract. So low risk of overruns or anything like that for that 2252 project. That's all my notes for the council meeting. Ms. Kane, is there anything that I missed there that you need to cover? Okay. Any questions on the right? Questions on the left? Okay. That moves us along to item 4C, recommendations. The first one we have to discuss tonight is AMI updates and notification process. There's a large amount of information that's in our packet today. I hope everybody had the chance to go ahead and go through that. Was there a staff member that was going to discuss this a bit? Or do you just want to just start firing with our questions after reading the packets?
Oh, about the AMI system? I was going to refer that to Michelle.
Hot potato, over to you, Michelle.
Okay, so what information I have put in your packet involves first of all, the vendor notification explanations, which is the screen that we're looking at right now. It basically indicates all the types of notifications that the AMI system can produce based on whatever the meter is doing. Not all of them are settings that we have as the city of Garden Ridge, but I did put it together the city notification settings sheet, which is that second sheet. And it basically explains, in my words, kind of what our settings are, what can happen if the customer doesn't set up their profile correctly, and what that looks like what they can and cannot do, that kind of thing. And then just, different meanings on what the explanations are on how the setting produces that alert for different reasons. So if you have questions now.
Well, I'm gonna jump in here a little bit and help you out, I think. There's a few things that are going on. We had some questions from our last leak adjustment about, hey, what happened to the AMI system there? So there's a couple of things that could have happened here, and I'm not sure if we know which one it was. But the first one is sometimes there can be gaps in data. Sometimes the transmission won't work, and then the meter will store up all that data and then eventually send it in a burst. And I know that I've heard before that there are people that get a large burst and all of a sudden 10,000 gallons got used that morning. Well, maybe not. Maybe it was just the last 5 days of data just finally came through and got sent. So that's one possible thing that could have happened with the leak that we had last month. Another one, you mentioned there about essentially a mismatch on the data that's in the water system versus the customer portal. You can sign up for the customer portal, not put your data in, and then that essentially tricks the system and you won't get any notifications. Did I sum up the two things that might have happened last month pretty well?
Yes, so when, in talking to the vendor, he did verify that he wasn't able to look at her historical setup or settings, her original settings, but he could see what's current. And so it could have been that when she first set up her profile in October, which is before the leak, she may not have put in an email address or a phone number. Leaving it blank will not fire off any notifications to her. Even though we may have data in the water account that says, she has an email address or a phone number, by her not entering that in the setup, would not send her a notification. But in his current view, which would have been in December, when she last touched it, December 27th, I think it was, he could see her email address and phone number, now populated. So that may have been the issue.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And so if someone does not have a customer portal, well, it defaults to water department data. And this is only if they have set up the customer portal and not put all their information in, that's when the disconnect can happen.
Yes.
Just
that's
had to say it
correct.
again
Yes.
to make sure we're good.
Right. If they have not set up a portal account, then it defaults to whatever information is in their water account, and we'll still send them notifications based on that information. As long as it is current and active, then they were going to receive notifications.
Okay, great. I think we probably have some other questions that are on here. I know somebody has some questions. We'll get to you. We'll get to you second, Bill. We'll start over here on the left.
Is there a process set up, like just periodically check and make sure that there's no disconnect? They have customer got set up portal, but they forgot to put an email on, or maybe they just forgot to put the .com on, or whatever it is?
So in situations like that, if, let's say that there was a leak, a present leak, and we go to view their notifications and we see that there's maybe a response that says no answer, that means there's an invalid phone number, something that must be wrong. So we try to reach out to that customer and ask them for their current information so we can populate it if they haven't set up their profile. So we do that, or we send out the water guys to go check the leak also if they have not received a notification and there is an active leak.
And I think an important thing to note is you cannot see or modify any customer's data on the portal.
That is correct. I do not have access to their private information on the profile.
Any other questions, Commissioner Stone? Dr. Carmichael? Okay. Vice Chair?
Are we just doing questions on what's here right now, or how broadly are we asking questions?
This is supposed to go through AMI updates and the notification process. That's pretty broad.
All right, well, first thing I just asked some of these things just to clarify. So Camstrup is the vendor for the meters. The meters have their own smart electronics, so it's constantly looking at flow. If I read this correctly, somehow Camstrup passes that through their collector to their cloud site. Is that correct?
Yes,
And then at some point that gets sent over to H2O. Is that the vendor for the portal?
yes, that is correct.
Is there a relationship between Camstrup and H2O?
Yes, I mean, they partner together to, set up like city AMI systems. So they coordinate where, if Camstrup does not set up the system for us directly, then H2O will partner with them to set up the portals in that way. So there's two different settings, there's two different setups. Camstrup does have their own, and it's called Reading Manager, and we also utilize that, but it doesn't send notifications out directly from that system, only from the H2O, because that's just our second, sub, I guess, notification system.
But as far as their relation, H2O, they're partners, but they're not subsidiaries, right? They're two different companies. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the part the customer can get through the portal, that information is only what's available to H2O. Is that correct?
So, say that again. One more time.
The customer's notifications that they get, or when they log onto the website and it shows their hourly usage, that is all what came from H2O? on that
Oh,
portal?
yes, yes.
Okay. Does the city get direct information from Camstrup? Any leak codes or any usage information?
Yes.
Okay. How does that information tie into our utility billing system?
So when we do the reading setups for billing, it all comes from Camstrup, their system, which is Reading Manager. That's the main system that gathers all the information. So it sends all the data to the collector with Reading Manager. Once that data is all collected, then I have to populate a file that sends it through. There's like a customer form file and a reading route file that goes to H2O Analytics, and that goes to Encode, which is our water account billing system. So all of that happens in that one day of my billing cycle, and it populates all the data that has been collected for readings as of, whatever my billing date is going to be.
Okay. With that said, then, as far as the notifications, what specific information does the city get? I mean, I read in here some of it, so I may have on it, but could you just clarify what information, what specific alerts or notifications does the city receive directly?
So that I have access to, on Reading Manager, to actually see burst alarms, which are not sent out to customers, which I explained on one of those paragraphs there. I can see burst alarms, I can see leak info codes, the continuous flow alerts, abnormal usage, trending, and but not any of the temperature. I can see some of the temperature ones, but that's only if it's a dry meter and they've taken it out, so there's low ambient temperature readings. I can see all of those. It doesn't necessarily send me an alert, but there is an email that goes out for the priority codes, which I have set up, which shows me burst and leak info codes and abnormal usage.
So we would get the information via email then, unless you went and just happened to go look.
Yes.
All right, does the Public Works Director get any of those emails, or only in the billing office?
It only comes to me because I have it set up to come to the water account.
All right, then my next question is, what process does the city have when you get these separate notifications that are not sent directly to the customer? What process do we have internally to make sure the Public Works is notified of potential leaks?
So in viewing either the emails that I do receive or the H2O analytic, I forgot what it's called. It's a connection info analysis screen. I can view, and Dwayne can view the active leaks on a daily basis, which we do. We buddy up together to notify each other if I happen to not be looking at it, and Dwayne finds a leak that's active and that may be in one of the higher gallons per hour range, that's when we start, we start with higher, 250 gallons or more, and work down and backwards to notify the customer if we see that a notification has not gone out, or there was a bad phone number or something like that in those situations. If there is a notification that went out and we see that there's ample time for them to still handle it, then we may not go out at that time. But if several days have passed and they did get a notification and they still haven't stopped it, then we do our best to go out there to notify them by door, in person.
Then, Stephen, do you or Dwayne have any business rules that you use for what level of leak you determine is worth either call to a customer or direct visit on your side?
If we see something that's high, we'll actually go out there and do it. We'll knock on the door if anybody's out there. No one answers, we'll leave a blue notice on their door, take a picture of that blue notice. We'll try to diagnose it, what's going on. Sometimes we'll go up to the backflow, turn it off, and see if the water stops flowing. We'll leave the backflow, if they're not there, we'll leave the backflow off, leave that note on there, specify what's going on. You need to check your irrigation system. But basically, we work from high to low. If you see a continuous leak, sometimes it could be 1 gallon an hour. And it could be going, if it looks like it's gone for like a day or two and then stopped, we won't worry about that. But if it looks like it's been running 1 gallon an hour for like a month, then we'll notify them. But those are the lower priorities. The higher priorities is 250 down to 30 gallons an hour. And that's basically, I'll even get on there and do a random look just to see what I can find to help out. But in order for somebody to be always looking at that, we'd probably have to hire somebody full-time to continually monitor that, to do random checks.
Okay, so you mentioned that you do this daily. Is there a process whereby, okay, it wasn't bad this day? Do I have some sort of reminder that tells me to go back and check it the next day? Or how often would you go back and follow up?
If it is something that, let's say we weren't able to notify the customer, they don't have a good phone number, we left a blue notice, and we still see that it's running. Dwayne and I both, communicate with each other, or we look at the work order system to make sure somebody, still has a task open, because we do have a work order system separate from those two notification systems. We will leave it open so that they can go back out there and see if they can reach out to the customer, or we keep calling.
So you had mentioned earlier that we kind of work from high to low, and it implied to me that there were some that maybe I don't worry about right now because there's still enough time for the customer to go back and look. So I was really wondering if you have a way to trigger yourself to check that one the next day to see if they did in fact go back to look. Is there a follow-up process? So we haven't made a work order, we haven't put a blue tag, we haven't gone out there, we haven't done anything. But how do we know to go back and see if it was stopped?
We go to that same system because it's basically it does an analysis every single day, and anything that stays in that leak criteria, we click on it, to open it up, because you can select any of the parameters or any of the notifications, and it will gather that group of people. We click on it again the next day to see if that same customer is on there, because there's all the different, there's different filters, the number of gallons per hour, columns, if you will. And so we go back in there to see if it's still there. We can, access it at any time.
Okay, so I'll switch gears just a little bit. So now we're looking from the customer side, so HTO is notifying them, and we know because of data latency and other reasons, they may not get notifications in a timely manner. Plus, what they get when they look at their profile may differ from what they get on the utility bill. So my question is, what sort of quality control process or audits or checks do we have to validate that the information that we have, our ground truth billing information, in fact, matches what customers have available in the portal? Is there any process where we go back weekly, monthly, or whatever to sample and see if the data matches? If not, that's fine. I'm just asking a question.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there actually is, and the customer, if they have a profile, they can actually do that as well. There is on your leak screen, or the usage screen, you can ask for it to send you an Excel worksheet that gives you hourly data all the way back to the history of the meter. It will go all the way back as far as the day they installed it. And you can go in and, you know, if you were well-versed in Excel, you can sort that to see the billing dates, by billing dates, and then I verify exactly what that data is. And I've had to do that many times when a customer has questioned their bill versus what they see in AMI, because it only gathers from, on a monthly basis, it gathers from the beginning of the month to the end of the month instead of our billing cycle days. So they get confused about why does it look different. So I have had to verify that.
But unless somebody asks a question, we don't have a randomized process where we just go check them a certain number each month? Is that?
No.
I mean, like Steven said, you probably need more people to do that anyway. I'm just trying to understand. Okay, given all these little subtleties on what the H2O system can do and what the customer will see and the differences and the definitions that are in this little packet you gave us, is there anything we're doing or can do to better inform the customers on what all that stuff actually means? Because, I mean, it's pretty complicated when I read it.
When we have new residents come in, we do our best to, and I have a couple of samples of the guide and the flyer that say, you know, sign up. And when I do talk to them at that point, I explain what the system can and cannot do, you know, kind of thing, and how it's helpful to them, what they can do to verify their usage, how, you know, the alerts work, things like that. So we do promote as much as possible when we do get our new residents. We also do it when we have phone calls and they don't understand why they keep getting a leak notification. So we explain at that point, you know, if they haven't logged into the system and accessed Get My Meter, then we show them how to do it so that they can view their usage and understand what those leak info codes are.
I also want to add something to that. We usually put articles in the Grapevine anytime we have some space, but I do think we could do a better job on social media educating our citizens. Some of them see some of these things and it's like a foreign language to them, and so kind of just putting some graphics to it, some visuals, making it very simple for them to honestly just create an account at first, and we can go from there. I think we could definitely expand on that.
Last question, I promise. So you discussed a lot of things of the way we do, a lot of things that I would call business rules. Are any of those written down?
Are you talking about policy?
The business rules about when you check, how do we follow up, all those things that were discussed.
Oh.
You know, you mentioned gallon thresholds and things like that, or I'm just asking if those are written down somewhere that they could be referenced.
Not that I know of.
Okay, that's it, all my questions. Thank you.
You, sir.
First of all, I had the opportunity yesterday to sit down with Michelle, and I really appreciate your time to look at the READY system. And one, you're obviously extremely knowledgeable about it, and it's a very powerful piece of software. So my questions are kind of surrounding how can we make the system operate to its full potential. One of the things I learned is that obviously all the data flows through the collector, which is up on the hill here, and depending on where you are in the city, It's correct that the latency or the delay in time can be 1 or 2 hours if you're close by to maybe a week or so if you're over in Park Lane. My question is it within our capability or the vendor to add another collector, additional collectors, so that the latency is reduced? Also, there might be some redundancy in that, because this thing got hit by lightning the other day and was out for a number of days. So I don't need an immediate answer, but it's kind of a budget item. But it seems to me that's a real critical link in the system to work correctly. It's the hub where the data comes in. Also, after our meeting and rereading this stuff, some of these alerts, like continuous flow, if there's a gap in the data, the system resets itself. Is that, if I'm reading it correctly, is that right? Meaning it won't put together the continuous flow information to give an alert if there's gaps in the data?
If there is a gap, it's going to look like there was no usage during that time, and it'll collect all at that hour when it reset.
Okay.
Kind of like what happened on the 4th, when it went down for those few days. It all gathered on the 4th when the water techs went out and reset the collector.
Okay. I guess it seems to me that it's so pivotal that there be more people on the portal with correct information, or as a backup, that their water bills have accurate contact information, so that in a more manual process, you can contact people. Are there more opportunities through social media for water bill stuffing, Market Day, which I think is coming up in a little bit, to really educate people, or even host a workshop for people that are just really totally unskilled in this, to get our 44% portal sign up to a higher number? Is that within our realm of being able to do it?
So educating through social media definitely is within our realm, and I think that's something that's long overdue. We did hold some workshop sessions with not much turnout, and we thought, okay, maybe people will just watch them online, which the whole meeting, it was done in here, so it was streamed and it was recorded. They're all available. I just think most people, their time is precious. They didn't really want to sit through hours and hours of us talking about something they didn't really understand. So I don't know if we would look into doing any additional workshops. The commission could do education sessions at their commission meetings on certain topics if you wanted to, but I think social media is probably our best place to start, because this day and age, a lot of people get their information from social media. They find out what's going on in the city through social media. And I think we did try in the beginning. We mailed out to everybody a slip for them to fill out their information to make sure we had updated information, and then asked them to return it. And we went in and manually checked all of those. I'm not sure that it's worth doing that again. It was kind of a one-time thing. Some people returned the slip back blank. Some people wrote some nasty things on the slips. So it's beside me why they would do that. But I think social media is a good place to start.
Okay. Particularly where we're in a drought situation and alerts, waste of water is very costly, and I don't know if that's an angle that might catch people's attention, that there's ways to prevent them, even with an appeal. The folks that we reviewed the last meeting ended up with an $800 water bill. Not to give specific attention to that, but that might be an opportunity to say this is a way to save money as well as save a precious resource in a dry time.
I think they do that when people come in and we have leaks. They do talk them through the portal and try to make sure their system's set up correctly. Is that right?
Okay.
What I would like to also add is that, the alerts that say restriction violations, those are, on a monthly basis, Stephen does go over those with us. Those are going out. Regardless of whether they are signed up for the portal or not, If they are watering outside of their restricted times, or they're not watering on the right day with their irrigation system, they are being notified by a restriction alert that says, you're basically in violation of the ordinance. So it is another, method of letting them know that there is water, being wasted during a stage 2 restriction.
That's all the questions I have. Thanks. And again, thank you for your time yesterday.
Are there any follow-up questions on the left or on the right from that discussion? I've got a few things I was gonna go if y'all are done. Okay. So listen, everybody here, I think there's a few things that we can go ahead and research. And I know that when we looked at installing the AMI system, we did look at the frequency map and the coverage and everything, and I think we can review the coverage that we have, and perhaps do a cost-benefit analysis on additional antennas. There's multiple ways to do that. It doesn't have to be a tower. There's small boosters you can buy. There are other ways. I remember several different ways that we could gather signals. And I think I would hope that the city staff would be willing to look at that for us perhaps and come back next month and see if there's any information that y'all could gather on that. In addition, we talked about the education there. I think, Marissa, did you volunteer to chuck something up there on social media for us?
Technically, I volunteered one of my employees, but yes.
Even better. I like that answer. I would just ask, when we do that, I think we have some good guides and there's a lot of information out there, but I think we can narrow it down to something that's a little bit more bite-sized so that we don't overwhelm people with information. If we can think the 3 to 5 things that would be most impactful for everybody and get that out there as a first wave. And there'll be something we bring up on the next agenda item also, and keep moving forward. Does that
Yeah.
seem fair?
Yes, and that's more so why I volunteered one of my employees and not myself, because she's the expert in that aspect of making things catch people's attention, not be too wordy, because you find that in certain posts, people just skip right by it when it's just a bunch of words. So something that catches their attention for them to actually be engaged. So-
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So I think we've got a few things to follow up on next month on that one. So if we could, we'll keep this agenda item and then follow up next month on those few things that we're talking about. Be also very interested to know what kind of hits we get on the social media once it gets out there and see if it's being effective or not. All right. Any follow-up for the AMI update and notification process here?
Did you want to discuss any more about recommendations, or you just want to save that for next month?
Well, I thought that was the recommendations there was to put something on social media and for the city staff to look into the collector and see if we can, what am I trying to say? See if we can increase our coverage and what the cost-benefit analysis of that would be.
I'd like to add one or two.
Oh, boy, here we go. All right.
I think that was really good discussion about the processes. I would like to add a recommendation that they get written down in some form of checklist or set of business rules that can be looked at. I also think the city in particular needs some form, some form of alert notice, and it might be just adjusting a threshold, so I'll leave it to the experts how, but there should be some sort of category of alert that is a little more significant. So when we get this alert, we need to pay attention to it instead of where we are now, where, like continuous flow, if it's really small, we're just kind of thinking about it. There should be something that says, this one's important. Like the customer's not going to pay the burst attention because there's too many false alarms, but maybe at the city level, we could pay attention to that. So if we get one of these type of alerts, we'll make a note, whatever we need to do to have a process that runs that. And then I guess the last one, I mean, I had a couple others, most of you guys already talked about them. The other thing is when we have a leak, significant leak adjustment, or maybe it didn't reach leak adjustment, it was just a significant leak that you guys went out and blue tagged and people found, there should be some sort of hot wash process afterwards where we try to figure out how this meter system works. The whole point of putting it in was to prevent these in the first place. We can't make customers sign up for them. There's a lot of complications with that. Well, we sure could do things better on our side to find them and notify people, I think, so. And then this isn't so much a recommendation, but we need to be careful with the restriction alerts, because since they're coming from H2O and there's so much lag in the data, especially in certain parts of the city, I'm not sure they're really meaningful. I mean, I think the times are suspect, because they can be hours off. So, I mean, I think the only real use for those alerts is as a general trend awareness for the city on how people are doing things. I don't know if they're useful to individuals unless we fix the latency. Thank you.
Just confirm the restriction alerts come, I didn't think those came from H2O. Am I missing that?
Yes, they still do. All the alerts come from H2O.
Okay.
You know, through that getmymeter.info if they have, if they signed up or they didn't. Either way, because we have data that shows an email address or a phone number. So either way, it's going to come from H2O Analytics, because
Okay.
that's the notification system. But I do want to ask a question, if you don't mind, to you. On the restriction alert, when you say that you're not sure that it would be helpful to them, are you saying that you think the hour that it is sent to them may not be accurate, or?
No, in the packet, it talks about, it's triggered by a business rule that compares hourly usage to the restrictions that are in effect, et cetera. But then it says it's important to understand the algorithm cannot know that water use is compliant or non-compliant. It's only an indicator that it may be out of compliance. And I know what I see on the portal from my hour. There are 3 or 4 hours off every time. It's not even close. So if I were to get an alert from the city that says you were watering out of hours, I would probably ignore it. And if you said I was violating the ordinance, I'd be offended, because there's not a good correlation between the time that shows and the actual time water was used. It's frequently 4 and 5 hours off. So I'd be a little leery of sending things to customers saying, you may be in violation of the ordinance unless we can be sure.
I'm a little leery of you saying it's always 4 or 5 hours off. Mine's actually pretty accurate from what I've seen, so.
Yeah, again, I don't check it every day, but when like I had a continuous leak alert earlier in the spring, and the hours showed that water was being used at a time that I didn't think it should be used. So at any rate, we went zone by zone and shut everything off and checked for like 3 or 4 days and never got another alert. So it was caused by that data lag and then sending it later. But in the
I'm
course of
just saying,
doing
I haven't observed a data lag.
Well,
Yeah.
my point is not that you did or I did. My point is it's possible, and it says so right in their documentation. So I think we should just be careful about telling customers you may be in violation of the ordinance based upon this particular system. As an information alert, hey, the system indicates, you might be watering outside the hours. It's more the wording than you get an alert. I wouldn't want to say you're in violation of the ordinance, because they may or may not be. It's just information. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
I can get you a copy of what it actually says on our template. I mean, you probably, if you have received one, it probably is this. Oh, okay. Sure, I will.
Michelle, when you and I were looking at, it was sort of like last contact, it seemed pretty variable. I mean, some places ostensibly sort of closer to this area was very close, and then the further out you went, it tended to be slower. Is that correct or more erratic?
So the notification time may vary because of the distance from the meter to the collector,
Yeah.
and when it actually sends it to the collector and when we receive the data. But what it's reporting is the time that it sensed the alert. So if, for instance, if it felt like there was a burst at 4 a.m. in the morning, it is sending you the data based on the time that it actually happened, but it may be sending it further out, like a few hours later, yes, because there is at least a 4-hour lag time before it actually sends out or resets and refreshes so that we can see the alerts. But it's based on the time that it actually happened. Okay.
If we're saying that that is, then we need to do some sort of audit to check, because I promise you on mine, it's at least an hour off. It'll say we use water at 2 a.m. and, well, not 2, because that's my water softener. But it'll say that there's time when I know we weren't using it, and then it'll say that your high usage was, 8 or 9 a.m. when I know it was 6 and 7. So I don't know what it is with the cancer meter and what it's recording, but the time that it is sending, I promise, is not 100% correct. It's probably not more than an hour off as far as the meter to that lag time, but plus it aggregates it into hours. So, you don't even know how the time is as far as what time the meter thinks it is and how accurate that is. So, anyway, I'll leave it at that. I just think we don't really know ground truth on that.
I'd like to add, it seems like the real key to this system, in a way, being credible with customers, is that the data is fairly timely. So in addition to the cost benefit of additional hardware, whether the vendors can weigh in and whether there's software issues associated with the processing of the data that's in addition to the hardware itself, either connecting or not connecting with the various devices. But it seems to me this is a really critical issue so that we know that the system is at least operating within a 2-hour window or something. Because other than that, some of the notification stuff, well, it just gets corrupted and can create confusion.
Let's do the study, and before we all start getting on the bandwagon here and start saying that the AMI system has all these problems, let's, no kidding, actually look at this and figure out whether that's true or not. So I've got a whole list of recommendations here. I don't want to read all these back, but meet with you afterwards and make sure that we both have the same list. Does that work? Ms. Kane, are you good with that? Okay. And anyone else that wants to go through that list, actually, Vice Chair, how about you and I go through that list and make sure that it's all good? That'll work. Okay. Are we good with AMI update, notification process, and recommendations? Anything on the left? Did I miss anything on the right? Okay. All right, moving over to item number 2 here, water conservation education booth at the Garden Ridge Market Days. Dr. Carmichael, was this you that brought this up last month? All right, sir, over to you then.
Unfortunately. I don't have an update on that, except that it would be nice to do. Do you have the contact information for the Market Day people? Because I'm not sure who set that up. That was the last commissioner set that up last year.
I know Councilmember Schwint would be an excellent place to start, so we can start with her perhaps. Is that, Ms. Kane, is that a good? Getting a booth at Market Days, yes.
Either that or making contact with the manager for the market days.
Do you have that information for us, ma'am? If so, can we get it later?
We can, I think she has an email or a web Facebook page. We'll see what we can find out.
Okay.
Okay?
Keep going, sir. What else?
Well, I think that's about it for now. If we get the contact, who else is on the education route now? Right, okay. maybe we can get together and come up with some topics. I think the AMI would be one, stage 2, stage 3 watering restrictions is another. I'm sure there are other topics that we can have for a booth, and then maybe coming up with a schedule where those on the commission who would like to volunteer, we can rotate, because no more than 2 of us could be in the booth at one time. But first, let's get a date.
Okay, the Garden Ridge Market Days manager, her email is kim@gardenridgemarket.com.
Thank you. So it sounds like we have a recommendation there from Commissioner Carmichael to go ahead and look at seeing what we can do to get a booth set up to cover AMI information and whatever else you deem necessary. So now, sir, I don't think we need to wait till next month to do this. If you would like to, because I'm trying to remember the market days, I think that happens the first week of the month. Is that correct?
No, it's the second Saturday,
Second
correct?
Saturday?
Second Saturday of
Okay.
each month.
Before our next meeting,
Yeah.
though. So if commissioners, or if Commissioner Carmichael, if you want to set something up prior to, then certainly work through the city staff and we can set up a schedule. We don't need to wait until the next meeting to actually set something up and act on this, I don't think. So by all means, we can work through Michelle and sort of get a schedule out and get people to sign up for the next one. If you want to move that quickly, I think we're good with that and the recommendation. If everybody's good with the recommendation that this is something that we should do and get out there and try to get certainly some AMI information and perhaps some other stuff out. So first of all, on the left. Good? On the right, Vice Chair, good with that? Everybody's good? Okay. Dr. Carmichael, you're all good and move on? All right. Is there anything else that folks would like to say about the education booth at Garden Ridge Market Days? Any other recommendations? Okay. I'm going to move on to item C, number 3, drought watering restrictions on Ordinance 61. Review and make possible recommendations on drought watering restrictions. We talked about this last month. We had a really good presentation from Stephen there, and just to refresh everybody's memories, we have the 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. watering restriction that's going on right now. And there's been a few requests there to look at that. Stephen went through a significant amount of data looking, reviewing, and it wasn't necessarily about the times, it was more about recovery for our pumps. Is that fair, Stephen?
Correct.
Okay. So it's about making sure that we have a good recovery time for our pumps before our high need times and replenishing our storage facilities. So we're going to look at that. The demand hasn't been overly high yet. We haven't really stressed the system. We're still sort of waiting on some of those hot months to see exactly, to watch it more closely and see what options we might have available. I would say we're still in the gathering data phase. We're still going to leave this on the agenda items as we move forward. I don't think, unless Stephen corrects me here, I don't think we have any good data right now that would change our current opinion. Is that correct? Okay. Now, with all that being said in that preamble, is there any comments from the right or anything else you want to add on this?
You know there is. Three big comment. The first one is drought measure ordinance 61 still has quite a bit of inconsistencies in it. So at some point, not immediate, it's not a crisis, probably needs another scrub. Second comment is, as we get these requests from various customers about the hardship that is posed by the 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. hours, city staff can certainly reach out to those folks and remind them that there's a process in Ordinance 61 for them to request a variance. And for some of these things, I think that would be some of the particular individuals who've sent in information, that would be a particularly good option for. Like if there's health reasons and things like that, there's no reason why an individual couldn't ask for a variance. So same total hours, but shift it on a case-by-case basis. Third thing is, having said that, I don't think the data that we got fully supports the hours that we have. I just don't, I didn't see that. I saw that there was a lot of times when pump capacity was not being used. So I think we could easily go from 4 a.m. to 9 a.m. and buy an extra hour, or if we really think this limiting to the same total hours is important, we could go 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. with no harm to the pump recovery time. That morning time is a high demand time already, so we're already allowing people to water when there's a lot of residential use. So I don't completely buy the argument. So anyway, that's my comments.
Anything?
Could I add something?
Go ahead.
On the saws, when we were looking at, from the 8 o'clock or, from the 7 to 11, is there a particular reason they have it that way? Because on research, you're looking for beneficial times for using your sprinkler, and they're recommending in the early morning hours of the day because of evaporation and the calmness. There's no wind really, for the most part, blowing and wasting water. I didn't know if there was a particular reason saws made that.
It's been a couple months since I actually read through all this stuff, but I think the primary thing was evaporation, and that's why it was in the morning, from what I remember. Comments on the left? All right. So do we want to make a recommendation to look at this, or do we want to, do you want to make a recommendation for a change to take to the city council, or would you rather take a look at it perhaps and?
I don't think we're ready to send it to city council. It doesn't sound like there's a big need. So my recommendation is just, and it could be by consensus, is just that the staff reach out to these individuals in particular and suggest applying for a variance. And then I agree that we should continue to look at this and try to get more information.
Okay, thank you. And I think an important thing to mention when we do talk about the variance, there's always the option of hand watering is always allowed. So that is an option, maybe perhaps not for the customers that are out there, but that is available at all times. All right. Anything further on drought watering restrictions? Did I miss anybody? Okay. All right, we're going to move on then to item 4D, future agenda items. We are going to keep these three items on the agenda, but are there any additional agenda items, topics that you want added? Go ahead.
I would like to start adding on every month to get an update on the status of the water master plan, because it's just been hanging out there for a long time. So if we don't ask questions, it won't get done.
Okay, I'll just,
Water master plan update?
I saw the administrator might have a comment. Maybe it's not, maybe it's OBE.
we
I
can't
don't know.
discuss, I can't go into discussion about it.
Thank you.
Bill, anything? Anything on the left? No other future agenda items? Okay. And that brings us to our second citizen comment period. No one needs to sign up for this. Are there any citizens that would like to stand up and provide any comments? Okay. No one for the second citizen comment period. That brings us to item number 6, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
We have a motion to adjourn in a second. In a second. All in favor, say aye. All right, we are adjourned at 7 p.m.
Yes. actually get